Cerulean Blue watercolour. Today I'm going to explain why this useful colour is nearly always included in beginners sets, and I'm going to show you how you can use it really effectively in your own paintings, both on its own and mixed with other colours. If we haven't met before, my name is Michelle. On this channel you'll find colour mixing videos just like this one, watercolour tips and techniques, business and social media training for artists. Now, Cerulean Blue is probably one of my all-time favourite colours. It's the most beautiful, delicate light blue, and it's probably the closest colour that you can get in a single pigment to sky, and that's why they always put it in a beginner's set, because it's very easy for beginners to use the Cerulean Blue for their skies. As this video goes on, I'm going to show you some different ways of using cerulean, both on its own and we're going to mix it with other colours. It's the most incredibly useful colour and you're going to love using it. Now, Cerulean Blue is a single pigment colour, so what this means is, just as its name suggests, the manufacturers only use one pigment when making it. There are two different pigments that are used to make Cerulean Blue. Some manufacturers use PB35 and some use PB36. You don't need to know what that means, it's just a chemical composition. But what this does mean is that there'll be a lot less difference between the brands than you'll see in some mixed colours. So a colour like Payne's Grey, for instance, is just it's whatever recipe the manufacturer decides looks like Payne's Grey. And so you get a lot of variation between brands, but you'll get less variation with single pigment colours between brands. So artist paints, unlike wall paints, they all have their own properties, and across all of the brands you'll find that Cerulean Blue is rather a weak colour, so when you're mixing with it you're going to need a lot more than you would need for something like Prussian Blue, which is very strong. So it's a weak colour, it's slightly opaque, but it reflects the light beautifully, and most importantly it's a granulating colour, and what this means is it has some larger pigments in, so you're going to find some speckling as it applies, but this looks very beautiful actually. And unlike pigments like ultramarine where you've got very heavy granulation, it can look far too harsh and heavy for skies. Cerulean Blue always looks just beautiful. Today we're going to compare three popular brands of Cerulean Blue to see just how much difference there is between them, and then we're going to have a go at mixing different colours with Cerulean Blue. Keep watching because you're going to find it really useful. Now let's start by looking at three different brands of Cerulean Blue. So the first one we've got here is by the SAA. That's a UK company, but you can buy them online. The one in the middle is the one I use most often, which is Talens Rembrandt, and on the end we have Daniel Smith. So I'm going to paint a little bit of these on the paper and we'll compare them. This one looks a bit different to the others. That's simply because I borrowed some from one of my students and I squeezed it out the other day because I was out of it in the studio. So I popped a little bit of water on that just to reactivate it, but it won't make any difference to the actual painting of it. So I'm going to move these up now and we're going to start with the SAA. So here I'm just going to paint a little bit of it on the paper with plenty of water. And there we are. You can see the traditional granulation and the softness of this lovely light blue. So that's a really nice colour. Next I'm going to paint the one that I'm most familiar with. That's Talens Rembrandt. So Rembrandt is Talens' professional range as opposed to Van Gogh, which is the student range. And these are all pigment PB35, so they should be very similar. The Talens Rembrandt is a little bit more expensive than the SAA, and to me it looks like it's got a little bit of a stronger, cleaner colour to it. So finally we've got Daniel Smith, so let's pop some of that on the paper. And again, it's a very nice traditional Cerulean Blue. There's very little difference between that and the Talens Rembrandt. It's possibly slightly of a sort of a stronger, hard to describe, but perhaps a little bit of a stronger, more pigmented colour there. But they're all very nice. As I said, I'm very fond of this middle one. I use it all the time. Daniel Smith, if you're a fan of Daniel Smith, you're not going to be disappointed by this paint. And the SAA, slightly lighter and the pigment not quite as clean, but if you're on a budget, it's a perfectly usable Cerulean Blue. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take each of these in turn and see what other colours we can mix from them. So let's think first of all about the traditional use of cerulean blue, which is to use it for skies. Now there's a reason it's always in beginner sets, and that's because it's really close to sky colour. In fact, the Latin name cerulean is derived from, it's loosely derived, but people say it translates as something like heaven's sky. So it's got that traditional sky colour, particularly if you're in the northern hemisphere. It's very reminiscent of an English sky, as opposed to perhaps a more Mediterranean sky. However, it can be adjusted in all sorts of different ways. So of course I could just use it on its own, and we're going to start with Daniel Smith here, and just using it on its own like that. Well, that's a very nice colour for skies, isn't it? But cerulean, like some of these lighter blues, can be rather cold looking. Now, what do you do if it's a little bit on the cold side and you just want to get more warmth in your sky, if you've got a summer sky? Well, what you can do is just mix the tiniest touch of pink with it. So I'm going to get some pink now. So here's my palette with my reds and oranges. And this second one here is quinacridone pink, but you might have permanent rose in your palette. You could even use opera rose. You can use a crimson or an alizarin crimson, perhaps a little bit less clean. Ideally, you want to use that lovely rose sort of pink. So this quinacridone pink will do nicely. And what I'm going to do is get a little bit of the Daniel Smith, and imagining I'm using it for sky colour, I just want to warm it up very slightly. So I'm going to put the tiniest touch of pink in it. I don't want to turn it as far as lilac at this stage. I just want to warm it up really. So we're just going to pop tiny bits of pink in and just see if we can get that slightly warmer blue from it. I think I need a bit more of the blue in there, a little bit more pink. Right, and let's try that next to the original sky colour. So look at that. I've still got a blue, but you see how much softer and warmer it is. You don't want your blue skies to look sort of too Arctic, unless you're, of course, painting the Arctic. But if you want that warmer summer sky, then you can drop a tiny bit of pink into your paint and you'll just warm it up nicely. Now you can still see the granulation in these paints, and whenever you're using cerulean blue, you're going to need to stir each time you dip your brush in the palette, because you will find that cerulean does separate on the palette otherwise, and you can end up with some very strange things going on. So do always stir your paint as you're applying. Now, what if warmth is not your problem? What if you want to use cerulean for the sky, but you actually really want a stronger sort of cleaner sky with less granulation, but you don't want to miss out on the nice properties of cerulean? What you can do is mix it half and half with something like a staining blue, so a phthalo blue, a Prussian blue, something like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix a little bit of the original blue with some phthalo blue, and so that we still get the properties of cerulean, but now we've got some transparency in there and some brightness too. So we're starting again with the Daniel Smith, and I want to keep the properties of cerulean, but I want to get a stronger, less granular colour. So I'm going to mix a little bit of this one in, and this is SAA Tropical Phthalo Blue, but you can use any phthalo blue. If you want real brightness, phthalo blue. If you want something a bit less in your face, then Prussian blue would do the trick too. You can even, if you're looking for a greyer sky, you can even mix with something like a Payne's grey. So what we're doing now is we're keeping the properties of the cerulean, but adding a stronger staining blue to it to reduce the granulation and to make a brighter colour. And there we have the cerulean, and it's mixed with a phthalo blue, looking very similar actually to my Daniel Smith manganese blue. So how else can we use cerulean? Well, cerulean makes some beautiful soft lilacs and soft purples. So I'm going to go on to the SAA cerulean this time, and we're going to mix it with the pink, just like we did here with the Daniel Smith, but we're going to add a bit more pink this time. So we're going to start off with the SAA blue, and I'm going to go for the pink again, and I'm going to put a lot more in this time. And what I've done now is I've mixed a lovely lilac colour. So cerulean isn't a great colour if you're looking for that real strong purple. For a strong purple you want to use ultramarine or even just a permanent violet straight from the tube. But if you're looking for those softer, more lilac colours, then cerulean is a brilliant colour to mix from. So we've got the SAA colour there, looking beautiful, mixed in with the quinacridone rose, but again, any kind of rose or pink will give you a lovely lilac. So what else can we do with this cerulean blue? Well, I've got this lilac colour here. Now what happens if I add some lemon yellow to this is that I'm then mixing with the 3 primary colours. So why would I do this? I'm going to show you. You can mix skin tones from cerulean and lemon and pink. So we're going to just pop those colours in and out until we get the right mix. I'm going to put a bit more pink in there and perhaps a bit more yellow. So balancing out, so we're getting those neutral colours appearing. And you can actually, I don't know if you can see that, but you can actually see the cerulean is separating on the palette there. So a little bit more yellow in there and then a bit more water, and we'll give it a good old stir, and then I'm going to apply some to the paper and see if we've got anything close to a skin tone, which is what I'm going for. It's not bad, is it? It's a little dark for a Caucasian skin tone. So let's add a bit more water and a bit more pink. Now the reason I'm saying Caucasian skin tone is simply because it's quite a cool blue. So if you were looking to mix African skin tones or Asian skin tones, you might want to go for a different blue. But I will do a separate colour mixing video on mixing lots of different types of skin tones. But for Caucasian skin tones, then cerulean blue, lemon yellow and pink can give you some really beautiful colours, and you can just adjust it in any direction to make it paler, put more water in. I think we want to make it a little bit pinker there. I mean, as an English person, my own complexion is something that looks like I've been buried for several days and then dug up. I would love to be beautifully warmly tanned, but generally I'm not. So you can see there that you're getting those different skin tones. There we've got a slightly pinker one, and if we just go straight in with more water and the paint that's already on my brush, you can get those really pale skin tones too. So what else can we do with this mix? Now if we've got lemon and pink and cerulean, we've got all 3 primary colours and we're mixing skin tones from that. But if I put more blue in, what's going to happen is I'm going to push that mix more towards grey, because grey is all 3 primary colours mixed together with an emphasis on blue pigment. So if I just use the same mix and increase the blue pigment, we should be able to get some nice soft greys. So look at that, really beautiful grey there. So much more soft and delicate than a Payne's grey. Some professional artists won't use Payne's grey. I love Payne's grey, but it's not suitable for everything. I'm going to add a little bit more water to that. And when you want really soft, delicate blues, then cerulean blue is your friend. You're going to have to make sure you stir and agitate it every time you apply. Now, do you see how the paint in there looks pink and orange? And that is because all the blue pigment has settled to the bottom. So if I show you it there, it looks sort of orangey colour. If I mix, 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 then we go back to the blue grey, and that's because those blue pigments are heavy and they're settling to the bottom. So do stir as you apply. So we're going to do one more thing with our cerulean blue, and that's we're going to make some soft greens from it. So let's see what happens, and we'll use the Talons Rembrandt here, and let's see what happens when I just put the lemon in and we skip the pink. So I'm going to get a beautiful soft fresh green. Now this is my go-to colour if I'm painting grass, not sort of grass that's been there all summer, but beautiful spring grass that's still got that lightness and that yellowness to it, and that's my go-to colour for grass. So what about if I mix with a warmer yellow? So let's go back to the Daniel Smith for this one, and rather than the lemon, I'm going to go for let's go for a cadmium yellow deep. So that is this one here. So you see how my colours go from cool up to warm, and then we've got things like quinacridone gold up here. Yes, I do have a lot of paint colours. So we're going to put the cadmium yellow deep in with the cerulean blue. So what we're going to get now is a much warmer blue, and we're looking sort of almost towards lime greens, but really, really much softer than that. And again, you've still got the granulation going on. So to recap, we've got the SAA Cerulean Blue here, the Talons Rembrandt and the Daniel Smith. Here we've got the cerulean used on its own for a sky colour. Here I've dropped a little bit of pink in for a warmer sky. With this one I've added phthalo blue so that we get a stronger, more transparent sky. And on this one I've used the pink and the cerulean to make a lovely lilac. The next row is all combinations of lemon and pink and cerulean in different amounts to make those pale, cool Caucasian skin tones. Using the same mix but going heavier on the blue, we've got some lovely soft greys. And here we've got lemon to make a soft cool green, and we've got cadmium yellow deep to make a warm green. But you could use any yellow along with your cerulean. So these are just some of my favourite colour mixes. Of course, cerulean blue can be used for many, many other things. You do want to remember when using it that, as I said, it's got to be stirred as you apply, and that it's rather a weak colour. So if you're mixing it, for instance, with something like the phthalo blue, it's not going to be a matter of half of each. It's going to be a lot more of the cerulean and a lot less of the phthalo, even then, to look like it's 50-50, because the cerulean is a weak colour and the phthalo blue is a very strong staining colour. So whichever colour mixes you're using, you're going to need a lot more of the blue than you would do for certain other blues like Prussian or phthalo blue. So I've put links in the description to all of the brands I've used today, all of the colours of cerulean blue. Do subscribe to the channel for more colour mixing videos just like this one, and you can watch another video right now.